guys, here we are. Like, what we call this episode 2?
Part 2?
Part two of our new podcast, What the Faith. Now, I don't even know if we call this season 1. This is like pregame.
This is pregame.
This is pregame. Yeah, we're trying to like just spark some ideas for students and families to like give us some feedback so we can like move forward. So in part 2 of What the Faith, we just figured like that we would just like share our faith journeys a little bit, like be a little vulnerable, like where we came from, how we got here, right? Yeah. So I'll start, I've been in student ministry for like 30 years. Yeah. And one of the reasons is it was like so important to my faith journey. Sure. So like I grew up at a church on the west side of Kansas City and West Side. And it was everything to me. Like I wanted to be like a sports kid, but I just wasn't very athletic. So it's hard to be a sports kid when you're not
growing
athletic.
Up there, do you even have a memory of like not knowing Jesus or? Was there a before?
Yeah. Like so my family really started going to this church, I think when I was like maybe 2nd, 3rd grade. Yeah. And I remember getting baptized, which is really intriguing. Right. Yeah. But I was kind of getting baptized because my parents was like, hey, this is what you do. Right. So I didn't really know what was going on. But I remember like in that middle school age going to confirmation and like we're learning about all the things that we're supposed to learn about. And I was like pretty into it. Yeah. And yet really self-conscious about it. Like was getting made fun of the other kids, right? They're like, you're really into this like Bible stuff. I'm like, we're at church and confirmation. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing?
Not cool to be into Jesus at church.
Right. Like, okay, make fun of me at school because of Jesus, but you're making fun of me at church because of Jesus? Yeah. And so I remember being kind of shy about it, but like after that season and like my small group kind of settled into like the people that were like going to be there all the time. Yeah. I remember being like, oh my goodness, I am so loved for the nerdy person I am. And I experienced that through the adults that were serving, but then I soon realized they acted that way because they love Jesus. Yep. And therefore they're going to love a knucklehead like me. Sure. And so it's probably like, my high school season, definitely, I was like, I understood the doing of church or the doing of loving Jesus, right? I love serve trips. I love making a difference in the world. But it really wasn't until going to college and doubting a lot of stuff, like a lot of students in college do. Yeah. And then coming back and being asked to serve as a 19-year-old on a middle school trip, that God just completely wrecked me, right? Like in all the good ways. Like I realized that all those things I had grown up and all those things that I had learned, they affected me, but really it was like to prepare me for like what God needed me to do in the world, right?
Well, tell us about some of the things that happened on the trip that you experienced there.
Yeah. So I remember like watching middle schoolers like so unselfishly like just serve and love people that were really different than them. And me going, the whole like faith like a child thing. Now here I am, I'm 19. I'm still pretty close to a child, right? But here's like 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, like gung-ho to do whatever was asked of them. And like a lot of times on surf trips, it's like really gross stuff that you wouldn't want to do at home, right? Sure. Like gutting a house or like cleaning out garbage or like sorting through clothes that aren't yours, right? That are smelly or dirty.
Serving,
right. And being like, man, if God can do that with middle schoolers, like who am I? What am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing? Yeah. And really like, it was the first experience I had with like young students in mental health. I had a student that was like on different meds, and that was new to me, right? And so like he was having a hard time, and God giving me the courage to sit next to this kid that was like going through a mental health crisis, and giving me the things or the actions to do that I wasn't trained to do, but like all of a sudden felt like, oh man, I can really like listen to a kid and give them comfort and grace and love. And I'm like, where did that come from, God? Like, I didn't know as myself as someone that was like that loving and grace-filled and caring.
Well, was it part of your DNA and also part of what you'd experienced in your own youth group?
Yeah. And at that moment, so my wife and I were dating at that time. We were 19 dating. And I remember coming home and her noticing, you are different.
Isn't
that interesting, right? Yeah, like, so she had grown with me her whole life. She had been on most of these serve trips with me. She knew me as somebody that loved Jesus, right? Yeah. But from that moment on, her going, you're different. Like you are passionate about serving God more than I've ever seen you, right? And so my life, you go through phases of that, right? But the calling of like loving Jesus and liking students and families has never gone away in that season. Even in my hardest moments, I always knew that God really wanted me to be like serving students. And so for 30 years, I've done that. I've done photo, video, and like I've been a musician. And unfortunately, none of those make a lot of money. So
what you have to do is
I met a wonderful woman that has loved me through all these creative God serving endeavors, and we've built a great life together. That's and awesome. Have two wonderful boys, you know, that like love God and love serving as well. So it's been a really cool journey. And then like, well, we'll go into this another time, but like 4 years ago, I got diagnosed with cancer, and those are really hard moments, but like I have grown in my faith so much in 4 years of like battling a terminal illness. Right. And so I would love to say that like, you're going to have these moments of like, oh, I love God more than I ever have. Yeah. And then like, there will come hard, wilderness or desert times that like, you're like, this sucks. And yet God shows up and we grow deeper in our faith again.
And that can be in the form of cancer or breakup or a loss or
fight with your parents or a bad grade.
Whatever it may be. Yeah, 100%. So we understand that it has different experiences for everybody.
Yeah.
But it can still feel, you're still going to feel the feels. And we certainly don't diminish that. And we'll talk about more of those things again in future episodes.
So in our faith, we will have despair. Yep. And we will have God's redemption and grace. And we will have despair, and we will have God's redemption and faith. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about this God we love.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing that story. Yeah. So,
how about you? Tell me about your faith story.
I grew up in a Christian home. We went to a Baptist church, and this is think of the Midwest version of Southern Baptist. So very fundamental, pretty hardcore. King James, fire and brimstone. Yeah. And I got to we made a lot of great friends but it just was more, it wasn't love and tenderness and care and grace and mercy. It was more about your sins and how wrong you are.
Getting right.
Get right with Jesus. And so it was an interesting place to grow up, or in the environment to grow up. But we made a lot of great friends. That's where I came to know Jesus. I got baptized in that church. But when I was a freshman, my parents, just some things happened, and we just decided to move to a different church. Okay. So we went to it's called an evangelical free church. Yeah. A little more
E-free.
Yep, E-free. A little more chill. A great youth group. Cool. And so I got involved in that, but I was battling. Talk about being vulnerable. I was battling a lot of insecurity. So this idea of just trying to be cool and fit in was something I was trying to do for a lot of years, because I was a smaller kid. Yeah. I was a brown kid in a very non-brown area in Iowa, and so it was me just trying to impress people or put on a facade or just try to be impressive, and that took a lot of my energy. So it took a lot away from being with God, right? Yeah. And so it really wasn't kind of similar till after I graduated high school, got out of that environment, struggled a little bit after high school, and then met my wife, who also grew up in the church. We knew each other as kids, but she moved away. Then we got reconnected a while back. We can talk about that in another episode. Hey. And then we got married, and then all of a sudden I was married, and then now with a husband. And so a lot of those kind of immaturities caught up, and I had to... I had to figure things out, and she helped me do that. And then she was a Christian as well, and so really our faith has helped me shape our relationship, our marriage. And then when I was probably in my 30s, I really started to really understand who I was, be comfortable with who I was. Right? Yeah. I was and be humble and a mature. How do I say this? Be kind of humbly mature, right? And so understanding that. I'm this person. I struggle with this. I'm good at this. Here's what I am. Here's how God made me. And so those kind of things really, really helped me. And so we got involved in a church in California where we had a great community, which was strong, lasted us several years. Then we had kids, and then we just kind of moved on through life. And then moving here about 8 years ago.
Only 8 years?
Yeah. Well, it'll be 9 this year.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems like longer than that. We bounced around to different churches, and then we were invited by the Hills, who their family.
Shout out Hill fam.
Shout out to the Hills. Thank you. We're invited to their small group, and we never thought we'd go to a church this big.
Oh, for sure.
When we first moved here, we were like, "What is this huge, massive-looking building?
What is this spaceship on the hill?"
Exactly. And so, but the size didn't matter. It was just that we were invited, right?
Yeah,
so Adam talks about this all the time, right?
Yeah.
Invite somebody, right?
Yeah.
Just open the door, and so the Hills did, and then from there, our kids got involved in the youth program with Mr. Nick, and then came over here with you, and so this last summer, and I'd taken other trips before, but this last summer we went to Carolina.
Yeah.
And so that was really, really impactful. And I just thought when I came back, you know what, I've got some time, and I'd like to maybe be a mentor and volunteer. So that has also been helped my faith journey. So yeah, we go through ups and downs. Everybody does, and we want to normalize that.
Yeah.
Here we want to share that with you again, being vulnerable about it. We want people to come on and be vulnerable, to their comfort level, and just normalize that, so when we do go through those downs, right, we have that support system, and we can have that commonality with each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my faith journey, and it's ongoing. It still continues.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, y'all, we're really glad that you joined us for this part D of What the Faith, and the name What the Faith came from some of our students.
I think that's awesome.
I love it.
What the Faith.
Yeah. Because there's a question mark, right?
There is, and it's like, what the faith, or what the faith?
Yeah.
So it leads to it can have different intonations and can mean different things, and we want this podcast to mean different things to you guys. So. Awesome.
So put some comments, wherever you're watching. We'd love to hear your faith story. And, maybe it'll be an opportunity for you to come join us in one of these chairs here and share.
We'll get more chairs.
More chairs.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 chairs.
Maybe 4.
So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.